So last week we talked about, so we have to learn, like obviously this is our duty. This is what we have to do each and every day, and we have to understand all of this. So last week we talked about analysis of the requirement, and then we know how to analyze the requirement and understand the requirement by reading the requirement, right? Read through the requirement, understand what it is. If it doesn't make sense, come up with questions. Ask the questions to business analyst. Make sure that requirement is testable. It is clear. It's not. It is bounded. It's not ambiguous. All of these things we talked about, right? So right here, right? So hope this is clear, right? Let's talk about test plan now. So like everything requires a plan. Just like for me to hold the meeting with you guys, there was a plan behind it. For you to do something or anything, there has to be a plan, right? If you want to build a car, you need a plan. If you want to build a building, you need a plan. If you want to build a table, you need a plan. Similarly, like you're dealing with softwares, and softwares are very expensive and very critical. And for that, you need to come up with a plan. As a QA, you will have a plan. As a dev, they will have their plan. Everybody will have their plan individually, but you're focused on your plan. What is your plan? How do you test it? And it has to be in a document form. It has to be written. So let's talk about a test plan. What is a test plan and what's inside a test plan? I'm going to show you a test plan as well as some stuff in the test plan. Okay, so if we look at test plan, right, this is STLC, how we perform a QA job, or STLC, software testing lifecycle. Within that, the second phase is test plan. So within that test plan, this is guys, I always tell you that nothing is standardized in this industry, but as long you make sense, that should be sufficient. So this is a typical test plan. Different company could have different things within their test plan, but if you can understand this, you're good to go. Your interviewer is going to be very impressed. When they ask you what is a test plan, you're going to say like, test plan is a detailed document which explains how the entire testing is going to be done. A typical test plan contains a cover page, just like every document contains a cover page, table of contents, introduction, purpose, scope, test approach, test entry criteria, test exit criteria, test acceptance criteria, test deliverables, test schedule, roles and responsibility, test environment, acronyms, risk and assessment. This is what a test plan usually have. Now, for your interview, if you are interviewed 5 times, 3 out of 5 times, people would be asking you about test plan. So understanding test plan is very crucial. When you go to work, you may or may not going to be creating a test plan, because test plan is created only once for the entire project. So usually, let's say one of the team member will create it, or different team member will create it, contribute it. Let's say your project is 6 months long, only one test plan would be created. And very rarely you would have to create a test plan. Even if you have to create a test plan, there is a format in place, there is a template in place. You would be just changing at certain areas based on your current project, but everything else is same. But for your interview, please understand and try to memorize this. Like, what is a test plan? What a test plan includes. So these are the things, understand and read. And I'm going to explain to you what these things are. Before that, let me just show you a typical test plan. I think we created it in one of our batch. I think it was the last batch. So if you see my screen, you can see a test plan. This is a test plan. It is IT solutions test plan for 2015. This is the version, guys. Last time I talked about version. What is a version, right? Version is like every time when a document changes, you change the number. If it's a this is not the first version, right? If you look at it, first version would be, by looking at it, you can tell it's not a first version. First version would be this, right? And there was some minor changes done, so we changed it to 1.1. Now, but you have to save each and every version. You have to save old version, you have to save new version for the record, but new version would have some changes to the number. Now, if you're making small changes, like I said last week, you'd be changing the number to the right. If you're making major changes, then you're going to be changing this number and make it 2.0 or 2.1. So basically this number represent, one is for the major changes within the document, one is for the minor changes. Okay, a test plan would have, so it would have version, and it would also have release number for which release. Right here you can see the release number. So release is tied to the application. What is the release? I think Shamim was explaining in his interview. Release is when an application is deployed to the production. If you guys remember SDLC process, we talked about production environment. So when your application goes to production environment, that's a release, right? So when you send that code to production environment, it goes in as a release, and a release has a number, something like this, right? Obviously this number increase as you make more and more production releases. Usually would start with 1.0, and then like whenever they're doing a minor build, they're going to change the number depending on what type of build. Just like I explained, if they are sending some small changes to the production environment, they'll change the number from here. If it's a medium, then they will change this number. If it's a major change, let's say application, we have an application where they're making huge changes. So we have zuho.com, right? So if they're making small changes, let's say they're adding a button here, like how you have customers, support, sales, and whatnot. They're making a small changes here, adding another button or functionality. They'll be saying, okay, 4.7.2 release. Next release would be 7.2, right? But if they're making major changes, let's say they're entirely redesigning the UI, they're changing how it looks and feels, they're changing much more than that, then they would change this number. They would say, okay, this is 5.7.1 or 5.0 release, because they are making major changes to their application. So I hope you understand this. This is the name of the document, this is the name of the company, this is the release number, and this is the date. I hope the cover page is clear. Table of contents, everybody knows where everything's are. It defines here. Introduction, obviously you're doing the introduction and giving the purpose of the document, why you need this document. And this is something like, you don't have to write it from scratch. It's going to be there in the company. You just, this part you don't even have to change. If they don't have it, you can find something from the Google. It's fine. Little bit about the project overview. That's something you can find in the company site, or it's going to be in the document itself. Project objective. Within that objective, every single ticket, every single functionality that is going in as part of this release is going to be listed here. And this is going to be from the requirement document itself. I mean, whole thing is from the requirement document. What are the requirements? This is nothing but a list of requirements. All of this. Test objective is defined here. This is, you'll find it in the templates. You don't have to worry about it. Scope of testing. Here you're talking about what are the different types of testing, guys. It's not one type of testing we perform. There are several type of testing, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But understand, in the scope of testing, you're going to talk about in scope of testing and out of scope of testing. You're going to talk about what are the different type of testing is in scope of this release. Like here, you're talking about sanity testing, automated regression testing, functional testing. These are cross-browser testing, database testing. Everything is in scope. Also, we are defining out of scope of testing. What are the testing is not in scope? For example, non-functional testing. We're talking about this here. Test entry and exit criteria. This is very important. Your interviewer will ask you about these things. What is test entry and what is test exit criteria? So understanding this thing is very important. What is test entry criteria? Before you go into testing, you have to make sure that your entry criteria is met. And what is test entry criteria? Remember, guys, we talked about setting up test environment. If you go back to STLC process, creating test environment, right? You cannot just go in and start testing. You have to set up your test environment. How you set up your test environment? Setting up test environment and test entry criteria is pretty similar, right? So you have to make sure certain things are done before you enter your testing. You have to make sure all plan tickets must be fixed, right? Developer has to fix all the tickets that they are assigned to. Unit and integration testing has to be done. Test environment must be in place. Test environment has to be there, and ready for system test use. Your test plan, test data should be there. Also, there are certain things is not listed here, but I have it written somewhere else into our test environment creation document. What is this document? Test plan. Okay, I think, give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so for example, as part of, it's not here, but let me just tell you, as part of test entry criteria, you have to make sure you have your testers ready. You have to make sure you have your application ready. You have to make sure you have your connectivity there. Your application environment is set up. Your documentations are there. Your test plan is there. Test cases are there. You have to make sure if you need any test data for example, if you need any credentials or any if you're testing a payment application, you need that payment method, payment process in place. What else? Um, these are the things I could recall, but I will list those out for you, and I have it written somewhere. So before you enter your testing, you have to make sure everything is already done. Checklist. You have to have a checklist, right? Okay. Exit criteria. That's very important. How do you exit out of testing? So these are the things you have to understand before you exit your testing, and the interviewer will ask you this question over and over again. So your test cases on Jira should be executed. All the test cases that you'd be writing, it has to be executed. Um, any exception therefore Jira item should be signed up. Okay, all the bugs that you log, it has to be either retested and closed, or it has to be deferred. Like Shamim was talking about in interview, deferred is like, let's say it's a minor bug caught in the application, and that thing, okay, we don't have time, we don't have to fix it now, we'll fix it in the future release. So they will sign off, like business analysts will sign off. So these are known issues, but these are small issues. Everybody's fine with that. So these are the things you have to consider. All high, medium priority defects are part of this release has been retested and closed. All the high priority bugs and the medium priority bugs has to be um, tested and closed. A regression testing, we talked about regression testing. Regression testing has to be completed. Regression testing of impacted areas of the application should be completed. Yeah, so I think this bullet point is covering the last one. We don't have to worry about the last one. So before you exit out of your testing, you have to make sure these areas are completed. Then you can say, okay, I'm satisfied with this release. Then test schedule. Test schedule is crucial. You have to list out the test schedule here within this test plan document. Like here, we're talking about cycle 1 is going to be from November 14th, November 17th to 21. Cycle 2 has different dates, and cycle 3, so on. So this is nothing but the dates. You'll find it in some shared location from the business analyst. What else? Approach. You're going to talk about your testing approach. This is something, you'll have it within the test plan document that the company has. What else? Test deliverables. So you're going to talk about different test deliverables are nothing but the documentation during the testing. For example, we talked about test plan, test cases, RTM, test analysis report. These are the things you would be providing to the broader team while testing. You're talking about this here. Roles and responsibilities here. You'll be listing out like your team and broader team who's doing what basically. Just like here, developers, release manager, everything is listed out here. Business analyst, support, all listed. Tools, testing tools. There are different certain tools you would be using to perform your testing. So you're going to be listing out the tools. For example, we have ALM here, Jira here. These are two major tools usually if you're doing manual testing. Um, Let me see if this still works. Probably doesn't work. Okay, so these are the things you're going to talk about. Then goes test environment. Which environment you're going to be performing testing? I hope you guys remember we talked about environment. Remember, guys, we talked about environment a few weeks back. What are the environments? So that we said there are QA environment, there are dev environment, there are UAT environment, there are production environment. These are the four environments. So you would be performing your testing in QA environment. So first, as you already know, first the life cycle of the application, right? First it gets built in dev environment where developers do their coding. Then they send it to QA and say, guys, we have completed our coding and we have performed unit and integration testing. There are two type of testing usually developers perform: unit and integration before giving it to you. So these are nothing but testing the code. They don't test that application from UI point of view. They perform testing from code itself, right? We'll talk about testing in another day. So then the application comes to QA environment. That's where you work. And once you're done with that, then you send it to UAT and then production, right? So I hope you know what is QA environment. We talked about it before. Uh, Environment needs, it's not that important. Risk, assumptions and dependencies. This is very important to highlight. Before you jump into testing, you talk about potential risk and you highlight it beforehand. So when it occurs, and if it does, they don't point fingers at you. You tell them like, hey, remember in my test plan document, I listed those out and you guys all saw it. So usually like the risk you would see, like if, let's say, if the requirement is changing frequently, that's a high risk. You may or may not be able to meet the deadline. So you want to highlight that at first. You want to let them know, hey, yeah, I got the requirement. We are working according to the requirement. But if the requirement is changing frequently during the development, then we're going to be behind. We won't be able to meet the deadline. So I need you to understand this. So that's one area. Other area, let's say, if they don't have a realistic timeline, if they give you a requirement and say, okay, we have to finish this within that time zone or time period, and if you think it's not realistic, you got to list it out here and let them know, yeah, we're working on it, but the timeline is not realistic. That's a risk. Other thing is like, let's say if somebody quits the job middle of the sprint, middle of the project, then it's a problem. So you want to list out all of that as much as possible. So that's it. This is a typical test plan, and it's crucial for everybody to understand what is test plan and what a typical test plan includes. When you go to work, you may see different fields in the test plan. Don't be surprised. People use different fields as needed. But as long as you understand the typical test plan, you are good. So let's see if we covered everything. So now if we come back here, right, I mean, this test plan has a few more acronyms. I think acronyms is different. And what else? Testing approach, I think we talked about. Yeah, I think this one only has acronyms different. So acronym is like, let's say you have test plan is usually also shared with the client. So acronyms, let's say you write short forms names, for example RTM, right? And when you're writing that, the client or someone outside the industry would not understand. So you list out all the acronyms, right? RTM, you would define, you would write the full form of RTM. What else, Rajibai? There is so many acronyms. Nothing
Uh,
is
TAR, TAR,
R.
Test
Yeah,
Analysis Report, even SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle.
STLC.
That
Yeah, all
those
of
are
that.
acronyms. Those are acronyms.
So for people to understand that, you'll have a section where you're going to be writing your acronyms, and you'll be detailing out. Now, looking back at test plan, from here, from high level point of view. So I hope it makes some sense right now, just like I showed you in the test plan document. Let me just copy this. What is a test plan? Okay. Test plan is a detailed document which explain how the entire testing is going to be done, right? Now, if you look at this, right? Um, now, if you look at this, now you know what is cover page, right? A test plan, I showed you cover page, you know what is cover page, you know, table of contents, you know, introduction, you know, purpose, you know, scope, right? In scope, we talk about in scope and out of scope of testing. Then testing approach, this is where we talked about what type of methodology we're going to be using, how we're going to be logging defect and tracking defect, etc. Test entry criteria. What is test entry criteria, right? Everything you need before you enter your testing. For example, you need testers, you need software, you need physical computer, you need all the accesses that you need to perform the testing, you need your test plan, your test cases, your RTM, your what else, test data, everything, like before you jump into testing. So that's test entry criteria, and that's nothing but setting up test environment. Same thing. Test exit criteria, before you exit, what are the things you need to make sure before you wash your hands of this application, and to make sure there is no high, medium, or critical bugs in the application. You need to make sure you have executed each and every test cases of that application. You need to make sure um, all the small bugs are accepted and deferred. And there is also ratio of passing ratio, test cases passing ratio has to be like 90 to 95%, things in those nature, right? Test acceptance criteria. Okay, so this is not in that test plan, but okay, so also, like, you know, a test plan could have a test acceptance criteria. So what is test acceptance criteria? It's nothing but, just we talked about a few minutes ago, an application could have some minor bugs, and you would be logging those bugs, you would be presenting those bugs to the business analyst and everybody involved, and they would be saying, okay, we know this exists in the application, this bug exists in the application, and we're fine with that, and they would be accepting it and move forward to the production knowing some minor bugs. So that's nothing but acceptance. Test deliverables, we talked about it, different documentation that you have in place during your testing. Test schedule, you know, this is where you'll be detailing about the schedules, timeline, roles and responsibility, like who's doing what. Test environment, which environment testing is going to be performing. Acronyms, you know, list of all the acronyms. Risk assessments, you're going to be highlighting the risks, potential risk. That's it, guys. This is test plan. Questions, concerns, confusions. Tell me where you're confused. I can go over it again. Seems like everybody understand.
Can you please go over what scope was again?
Scope. So scope is what's in scope and what is out of scope. So, for example, let's say we're gonna have dinner today, right? What is in the dinner and what is not in the dinner? Let's say uh, today's dinner is with rice and curry. Bread is out of it. Simple as that, right? You know, let's say we're gonna have dinner with rice and curry, but no bread today. So similarly here, you're talking about what are the different type of testing you're going to be performing. What are the different type of testing in scope, and what are the different type of testing out of scope? Okay, there are different type of testing that you would be performing when you're performing testing in an application. So here you're going to be upfront, you're going to be telling them that these are the testing in scope, these are the testing out of scope. Nothing more than that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other confusions, guys? Expectation from everyone to understand a test plan. Expectation from everyone to be able to write a test plan.
From my understanding, as you mentioned, that it's only written at the beginning of the project. So let's say on different builds, when you get different releases, do you make a new test plan for a new release, or would you still be updating the current old test plan?
So so you have your, let's say you're working in this zuho.com, right? Zuho.com, right? For if you're working in waterfall, right, you'd be creating one test plan from the beginning to ending, and
Right,
you
right,
know that, and it's done, right?
right.
When you're working in agile, things get a little bit hectic, and when you're doing 2 weeks of agile sprint, very rarely you're going to see people are constantly making changes to the test plan
Mm-hmm.
and following it. And nowadays in the industry, people don't even follow that practice, you know.
Mm,
But ideally, before your sprint, you have to go and update your test plan. You're going to have to make minor changes, right? Everything is going
mm,
to be same. You're going to be changing the requirements. Where is the requirement section? You're going to be, putting new requirements and deleting the old ones.
right,
The
right.
timeline you're going to be changing. You're going to be changing very minor things. But
Okay,
yes,
okay.
you have to make changes.
Right, right, right. Got it.
Brother Fahad is very quiet today. What's going on,
No,
man?
no, brother Fahad left a chat message for you while you were explaining test plan, and he also reached out to me saying that he's going to be in an environment where he won't be able to talk, so he has to type out the question.
Okay.
He's not at his regular environment where he usually is.
Okay, okay. Yeah, Brother Fahad, like, yeah, Shamim was explaining test plan during the interview and the regression testing. It's all part of it. Okay, so guys, so the homework for the next week has everybody must have a clear understanding of STLC, obviously, and test plan, and everyone has to design a test plan and share it. So test plan would be Zuho.com application. You can design the test plan. I can share you the test plan from the ID solutions, or you can Google something and come up with your own test plan and just share it. Now, the next topic, any questions about test plan or the homework?
Mamun, what did you understand about the homework? Did you understand that you're going to have to make a full document, just like this document is how many pages? 23 pages? You're going to have to make a 23-page document of,
Could be more or less, but
yeah, no, 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 17 pages, I think. 23 pages is a entire document. So you're gonna have to make a document of a big document of test plan document, and you're gonna have to understand what is inside a test plan document, and you're gonna have to, you know, type it out like you saw in the description here. That's what everybody is going to have to do. They're going to have to make a test plan document. Please ask your questions what you do not understand about that homework.
So are you guys gonna give out the test cases to put within the test plan, or
No, you didn't see any test cases in the test plan document. After you get make the test plan document, test cases is much later. But you're gonna have requirements, which you're gonna put in the test plan document.
Amun, I think you're a little confused about this. You're talking about these guys, right?
Yeah.
This is requirement. So for now, you don't have requirement. So you can just put dummy requirement. You can just put like, CPM 001, 002, 003. And in here, you can just, put anything, say like test requirement 001, test requirement 002. This is, don't worry about this, right? This area comes from the requirement, right? um, Everything else, let me just explain to you. You can get, obviously I don't want everybody to write each and everything, right? Go to Google, find out a test plan, example of a test plan, grab it, right? And then write on top of it. So what are you writing? You leave everything alone here. Introduction, just project overview. You just talk a little bit about this application. What is this application all about, right? You can try to find something, I'm sure, somewhere about this project, what they do, what is they're all about. So just write a few words about them. I know it's not going to be perfect. Somewhere over here it says about, and if you go here, you'll find out what they're all about. Oh, here you go. You see, they're talking, what they're all about. Just read through this, try to make sense out of it, pick up a paragraph, copy and paste it here, or make something on your own, right? Document purpose is the same, right? You're just going to change the project release number, and the company name, something like that, right? Project, guys, this is for everybody, please understand that the overview, project overview, is tied to the project, right? So you're going to go in here, find out what is this project all about, list it out here. Project objectives under this, I'm going to share this exact document to you guys, so it's going to be simple for you guys. Here you just find some requirements, or just write some dummy requirement. Just say, requirement 001, 002, something like that, that's fine. And then test objectives, why, like, you would be testing and things in those nature. You don't need to change it, just read through it. If it makes sense, just change the company name, just change the company name. Scope of testing, right? uh, this type of testings are fine, like sanity testing, automation testing, functional testing, cross-browser testing, database testing, fine. Out of scope is non-functional testing, perfectly fine. I don't see you making changes here much. Just read through it and see if there is any changes needs to be done. If not, leave it alone. Test entry criteria, make some changes in test entry criteria, guys. There are a few bullet points is missing here, as I talked about. Test exit criteria is perfectly fine, right? Test schedule, you can make some changes and put some relevant dates here. um, this is a screenshot, so it's going to be hard to make changes, but do your best. Testing approach, make changes where you think is necessary, but for the most part it's going to be same. Okay. Automated versus regression testing, this just stays the same. I think you're fine. Test deliverables, same thing. Few changes here and there, otherwise it's good. I don't see too much work in here. The roles and responsibility, put names of our uh, all the students and everybody involved in ID solutions. You can assign somebody as a director, somebody as a test lead, then test analyst is nothing but QA, quality assurance. What you are, what are you learning? Developers, just make somebody developers. Release manager, make somebody business analyst. That's fine. Testing tools, these two tools are perfectly fine. you know just make some changes here with the release. Test environment, same thing, it stays. QA environment. You see, guys, this is the URL, https qa.its.com. So when you see this is a QA environment. When you see UAT, it's a UAT environment. When you see production environment, will not have any of this. It's just going to be like this. It's not. It will not have QA or UAT written. That's just standard. Here you're going to be highlighting about the risk. Does it make sense, or are you still confused?
So basically, we just have to make a document like this.
Yeah, just make a test plan document for zuhor.com. So when you go to interview, they're going to ask you, do you know how to create a test plan? You're going to say yes. So if you don't do it, then you don't know, right? So zuhor.com, then I'm going to give you the test plan. Test plan downloads. Yeah, you can ask questions. I'm going to stop recording so we're not killing the space. Stop recording. Tell me